Good morning, our students. My name is Maria Shipandeni, and I'm sitting in today for Mr. Kahumba Absalom, and I'll actually give you these contact classes based on the assignment and for natural science and health 1. And I welcome you all. So as I said, it's natural science and health 1, and I'm sitting in for Mr. Kahumba, and you have your tutor's details there on the slide. That is 081246753. In case you have any questions, you are welcome to contact him. To go through the assignment, assignment should be submitted by on the 15th January 2018. So I'm going to just take you through the assignment questions and probably elucidate more on how you can handle the questions. So for question 1, the question is, what are the 3 core public health functions? So here, as I go through, you should also look at the marks that are allocated to each question. So here you are asked to mention 3 core public health functions. So what are the 3 core public health functions? So you should write that, and it's weighing of 3 marks. And then the second question is, discuss how each one of the following local health factors affect individual or community or families. So there are about five points. So what is expected from you is actually just to discuss how each of the following, I'm gonna mention the factors, how each of the following local health factors affect individual or community or families. And those factors that you have to discuss is the poor quality air. So the first one is poor quality air, and poor family education, water pollution, poor healthcare education, and unstable political situation in the country. So you are supposed to now discuss, or you are asked to discuss, how each of those factors that are mentioned there actually affect either individual, community, or families. That is poor quality air. So how does poor quality air affect individuals, community, or families? How family education, how water pollution, poor healthcare education, and unstable political situation in a country affect individuals, communities, or families. And this is based on those are local health factors. So you just discuss them individually, one by one, discuss how they affect or individual communities or families. All right, and then the question 3 is asking you to state 5 ways of preventing malaria. So malaria, as you know, it's a disease. So how can it be prevented? So you state 5 ways, only 5 ways of preventing malaria. And then the 4th question is, name and discuss 3 general hygiene practices that can be practiced by individuals. You know, hygiene practices. So now you should name and describe 3 general hygiene practices that can be practiced by individuals, and that is weighing 6 marks. So, and the 5th question is, discuss features of a supportive natural science and health classroom environment. So it's about classroom environment. So discuss the features of a supportive natural science and health classroom environment, and that is weighing 3 marks. And the 6th question is, there are actually 3 theories about light that are very interesting. 3 theories about light that are actually very interesting. So your question is just for you to explain those theories and give example of each. The theories are given on the next page. These theories are like light travel in a straight line. So you need to explain that theory and then give an example. And light cannot go through objects, so you need to discuss that theory and give an example. And light can go through transparent objects, so discuss or explain that factor or that theory. Like the light cannot go through transparent light can go through transparent objects. So you explain that factor or that theory and give an example of each. So when you are explaining, as it requested, you have to explain the theory individually and give an example of each theory. And the theory are already given, like light travels in a straight line, so explain it and give an example. And light cannot go through objects, so you have to explain that theory as well and give an example. And then light goes through transparent object. You explain that theory and then give an example. I hope we are together. And then we go to the 7th question. From the idea that light travel in a straight line, explain why heat does not necessarily travel in a straight line. So this question is asking you to explain why heat does not necessarily travel in a straight line. So from the idea that light travels through a straight line, so now you should explain why heat does not necessarily travel in a straight line, and it's weighing 3 marks. And the 8th question is asking, name 3 phases in which water occurs. Name 3 phases in which occurs. In which water occurs. This is also 3 points, so 1 point for each phase. So name 3 phases in which water occurs. You know there are phases of water that water go through, though. So you name 3 phases in which water occurs. And the 9th question is, use water as an example to illustrate condensation and evaporation. You know there is evaporation and condensation. So what you should do here is now use water as an example to illustrate condensation and evaporation, and that is actually weighing 4 marks. And the 10th question is about, you are asked to define the term mass and weight. So here you are just actually asked to define the term mass and weight. So you define the term mass and weight. The 11th question is about differentiating. So differentiate between biodegradable and non-biodegradable materials. So you are asked to distinguish or differentiate between biodegradable and non-biodegradable materials. What makes biodegradable and non-biodegradable material differ? So what is the difference between biodegradable and non-biodegradable materials? That is actually 4 marks. And then we move on to question 12. Question 12 is actually asking you to discuss 5 dangers of contaminated water to human health. So discuss 5 dangers. What are the 5 harmful or dangers of contaminated water to human health? So why is it very dangerous, or why give 5 dangers, 5 harmful effects or 5 dangers of contaminated water to human health? And that is actually weighing 10 marks. 10 marks, you discuss 5 dangers of contaminated water to human health. As you know that we sometimes either that we don't have choice, maybe people use contaminated water. So what is the danger of using contaminated water as with regards to our health? So discuss 5 dangers of contaminated water to human health, and that is actually weighing 10 marks. So 10 points there. And then the question 13, it's asking lack of water in the human body. Lack of water in the human body can be dangerous and maybe result in death. So highlight some consequences of lack of water to human body. So what are the consequences of not having enough water in our human body? Literally. So lack of water in human body can be dangerous and may even result in death. So what you are asked here is actually to highlight some consequences of lack of water to human body. So highlight some of the consequences of lack of water to human body, and that question is actually weighing 5 marks. So you just have to highlight what are the consequences of not having enough water in the body. So the consequences of lack of water to human body. So, and question 14, there is a table below. So the question is, there are different types of soil in the environment. There are different types of soil in the environment, and each of the type of soil has its own characteristics and uses. So each has its own characteristics and uses. So by looking at the table below, as you can see, complete the missing information. All in all, that question is weighing 7 marks. So what you have on the table is, like, you have actually 3 columns. You have the type of soil, the structure, and there you have the water holding capacity. Type of soil, structure, and water holding capacity. And before we go into detail about the table, remember you are just asked to actually fill the missing information on that table. So there are different types of soil in the environment, and each has its own characteristics and uses. So using the table below, or look at the table below and complete the missing information. So you have the type of soil, the structure, and then the water holding capacity. So with the loam soil, that's the type of soil. Then you have information on that structure have silt, clay, and sand particles. That means that the loam soil have silt, clay, and sand particles. Then there is missing information that is actually the missing information is on that type of soil is on water holding capacity. So what you have to do there is fill the information that actually relates to loam when it comes to water holding capacity. So what is the water holding capacity of the loam soil? So you fill the gap. And then the type of soil, you have B is actually blank, so you fill that type of soil there. And then the structure is blank, as quoted C, so you have to fill that information there. What is the structure of that type of soil that you put in B? And then you write on the water holding capacity. So what is the whole water holding capacity of that type of soil? And mind you, since you have loam soil here, you have another type of soil that's supposed to be B, and then you have another type of soil that is sandy. Sandy, you have information there if you are following me very well. So the structure is biggest particle size, biggest particles, they have biggest particles. Sandy soil, they have biggest particle. And then the water holding capacity is blank. So you have to fill the gap. So what is the water holding capacity of the sand soil? And then we move on to another type of soil that is blank as well. It's F. You fill the gap there. What is that type of soil? And then the structure is also blank, so you fill that gap. So what is the structure of that type of soil. And then the water holding capacity is that it can hold moisture for a long time. It can hold moisture long. It can hold moisture long. That is what we have there. So that means that can actually guide you to see what type of soil is missing on B, C, on B. Because if you know that this type of soil that is supposed to be on F can hold moisture longer, then you can actually use that information to fill the gap of actually B. So what could that be? That type of soil that is supposed to be B, and then you have to describe that as in terms of structure and water holding capacity. So here you have 7 marks, and you have A, B, C, D, E, F, and G to actually fill the gap. So you only need to fill the missing information. I hope I made it clear. So question 15 is, how will you as a teacher illustrate to grade 5 learners that air occupies space, air can be compressed, warm air rises? So you have to actually just explain how you as a teacher can actually illustrate to grade 5 learners that air occupies space, air can be compressed, and warm air rises. So you have all those points 1 to 3, and then you give an illustration for each, and this question actually weighs 6 marks. So how you illustrate to grade 5 learners that air occupies space? How you illustrate to learners that air can be compressed? Or how can you illustrate to learners that warm air rises? So 6 marks there on question 15. And then we move on. We move on to question 16. Question 16 is actually asking, by identifying various parts of the print material, you identify various parts of the print first with the figure below. I'll go to the figure just in a bit. So by identifying various parts of the print, discuss how you will teach this print below to grade 5 learners in class. So what you are supposed to do here is just to first identify various parts of the print. You have various parts of the print, as you can see on your slide. So various parts of the print, identify from A to H. As you identify them, then you actually discuss how you would teach this print below to the learners. How will you teach that information that you have, or the information on that print there that you have there, to grade 5 learners? So you identify the parts and you discuss how you would teach this print to grade 5 learners in class. So you have the print, and then you just discuss how you would teach it to grade 5 learners. And then we have question 17. Question 17 is actually just asking you to draw a flower of a flowering plant. Draw a flower of a flowering plant and label all parts of the flower correctly. So I guess you know the flower of a flowering plant. So what is asked for you here is just to draw that flower and then label the part correctly. So make sure when you are drawing the flower, your parts are also nicely visible, that you can easily or correctly identify those parts and label them. So 10 marks just to draw the flower of a flowering plant and then label the parts correctly. And then question 18, how can poor eating habits, that's malnutrition, how can poor eating habit, in bracket malnutrition, affect children's performance in school? How can poor eating habit, that's malnutrition, affect children's performance in school? That's 5 marks. You just discuss how the poor eating habits can actually affect children's performance in school. And question 19, Explain the primary functions of the excretory system. You have human body systems. The human body is made up of several systems, and then here you are just asked to actually explain the primary function of the excretory system. So you are just asked to explain the primary function of the excretory system, and that is actually 5 marks out of 5 marks. I mean, with those 5 marks, just to explain what the primary function of the excretory system is. And question 20. Analyze the purpose or the roles of the river in our human body. So what are the functions or the roles or purpose of the river in human body? We do have the river. What is the function of the liver in human body? That's actually out of 5. And then question 21. Question 21 is about gender roles. So the question is, discuss the proper gender roles in the school and at home. So you discuss the proper gender roles in the school and at home. Discuss the proper gender roles in school and at home out of 5. And question 22 is about the ecosystem. So explain the importance of ecosystem to human existence. So explain the importance of ecosystem for human existence. Why is the ecosystem important to our existence as human? So explain the importance of ecosystem for human existence out of 5. So just for you to explain the ecosystem, I mean the importance of the ecosystem to human existence. And question 23. Question 23 is about distinguishing. So you are asked to differentiate between deforestation and grazing, overgrazing. So you have to differentiate between deforestation and overgrazing. So what is the difference between deforestation and overgrazing? Out of 4 marks, distinguish or simply differentiate between deforestation and overgrazing. Just to differentiate between deforestation and overgrazing, and that is out of 4. And that's the end. The total marks is 130, and the questions were as I took you through from question 1 to question 23, from question 1 to question 23, and these questions have different marks. And so, some of them are about to explain, some of them is about to discuss, and there are few questions that you just have to fill the gaps, and some of the questions that you have to draw. So you just have to draw the flower and label the part. And out of 130 marks, the total assignment is weighing 130 marks. I thank you very much.